Hello, Raider Nation. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on Sports Illustrated and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. It's great to be with you. Aloha from here in Kauai, Hawaii. If you've never been to Kauai, it is by far my favorite of the Hawaiian Islands. My wife and I love to come here every bye week. Man, it was needed. Still working. They're out shopping or doing whatever they're doing, but still, it's great to be here. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to getting back to Vegas and getting back into the Raiders swing of things. But let's very quickly now dig into and answer some very key questions. I do want to give you a message from my staff, though, that's very, very important. We have gotten a lot, not a few, a lot of emails on topics I've covered at length recently in the podcast. So you're not going to hear them addressed in the question and answer. It's not fair to the people that listen every day. But some of those subjects are Shadur Sanders, tanking, um, answering comments on other media's reports. I don't do that. Um, the NFL draft, just a lot of issues. So I encourage you, if your question doesn't get answered and you're doing it every week, the chances are it's already been addressed. That's why it's not being picked. So there you go. Let's get right into it. The first question uh, I thought was very interesting. It comes from Carlos L. in California. Carlos said, Hondo, you've always done a very good job over your first four drafts you've covered for the Raiders, telling us what you're hearing from other people about Raiders scouts and just things you were hearing as they zeroed in on players. Could you give us any of that? I know you said you personally have not looked at any quarterback information. Just what are you hearing from your sources about the Raiders scouts? First of all, thank you, Carlos. That's a great question. Obviously, the obvious, a lot of attention on quarterbacks. Um, I'm going to um, once the Raiders become mathematically eliminated, I'll spend even more time on this. I won't wait till the end of the season as much. Once they become mathematically eliminated, I think at 2-7, there's a very good shot that could happen quickly, but you never know. They could get on a run. So I'm going to stay focused on that. I've got other staff, Carter Landis, who writes for us that pays attention to that stuff, Michael France. But I will be keeping keen attention once they get to that. I don't know the magic sweet number, but once they get to that 9-loss area, obviously, 9 losses, then I'll pay a lot more attention. But a lot of quarterbacks. I'll tell you something interesting though, and this may surprise you a little bit. Some of you it may not. Hearing a lot of attention on a couple of linebackers that they're keying in on. I think it's very interesting, and you can tell um, a lot about a team and where they're going by where they put resources. So scouting, I'm hearing a lot of quarterback. I'm hearing specifically on a couple of linebackers, um, offensive linemen, a lot of different areas. But if I was to say the most I'm hearing about at this point is quarterback, linebacker, and offensive lineman. Next, this comes to us from John M. in Ohio. With the Raiders probably going to draft a quarterback in the NFL draft, what do you think of them signing a veteran? Well, as you know, I think one of the things that has concerned me the most, and we've written about it, and Tom Brady has even talked about it. Michael France has an article coming here very soon on this. Um, I don't think it's a service to 95% of the quarterbacks to play them early. You need to develop quarterbacks. Now, there are some that step into the league with enough experience and enough maturity that that's not necessary. So I don't think you can say it's a constant, it's a static. But I am a guy who 95% of the time is not for playing the rookie his rookie year. And again, Tom Brady agrees with me. And he thinks he became the quarterback he did because he wasn't thrown into a starting position. Again, I don't think you can say that's the case everywhere. Look at Dan Marino. Look at CJ Stroud. There are those guys, excuse me, who are very successful as rookies, but it is minuscule. So, number one, and I've said that before and I stand by that. As far as signing a veteran, that's where the Raiders have to decide. Is it just time to move on from Gardner? Is it just time to move on from Aiden? If they decide no, then they don't have to go sign somebody. If they say, you know what, we're going to keep Aiden, we'll let Gardner go, or vice versa. Or what if they decide they're going to go with a more mobile quarterback oriented offense? You never know. So I certainly think you want a veteran for sure. I agree with that, John. 100%. You want that. But I think they have to make the decision of whether they feel like they've got that in one of their other quarterbacks. Next one says, Hondo, this comes from some Brian T. Hondo, do you think excuse me, did they keep the offensive players in the building with the offensive changes during the bye week? No, the players were released to go. And I think that was Monday evening. I could be wrong, but I think it was Monday evening, Monday late afternoon. They come in, they do their Monday treatments, everything else, meetings, and then go. And they just get out of the building. First of all, the offensive grouping has to get together now and determine what are we going to do different. What's the use of moving on from Luke Getsy if you don't change anything? You know, the definition of stupidity, according to Albert Einstein, is doing the same thing and expecting different results. I know some people say that he said that about insanity. I've seen it both quoted to him, insanity and stupidity. So it's either one of them, but I think they both apply here. If you get rid of Luke Getsy, which was their decision, I'm not saying they should have or shouldn't have, I'm just saying they did, then what's the purpose of doing that if nothing's going to change? If things are going to change, things have to change. I know they've spent a lot of time looking at film of a lot of issues. As a matter of fact, I was told specifically that it's been a film fest for the offensive coaches. It's been a pairing of the playbook, adding, subtracting. I don't know that this word may be a stretch, but um, I, I don't know. You can go through a huge philosophical change. AP knows what he wants to do, which is the old Al Davis system: pound the ball and go down the field with a vertical attack. He wants that 1-2 punch. That has not changed. But I think you can use the term philosophically things have changed because they weren't doing that or with the regularity and respect that they wanted. So there you go. Next one comes back. Hondo, can you give me your insight on what you're expecting to see in Miami with the Dolphins? And will you be there? I know you go to all the games, but you're in Hawaii. Of course, I'm going to be in Miami. Notice I said it right. I'm trying, guys. Of course, I'm going to be there. And yes, what am I looking for? Well, you have the same players, and other than Norv Turner, you got a lot of the same coaches, but I'm looking for the nuance differences. I'm looking for the changes. I'm looking for the play callings, the setups. I would say to you, and I was very open about this, and thank God you got to see it. Luke Getsy's issue was not creativity. He had a lot of those weapons in his bag. We didn't get to see them a ton, but we did get to see them enough to know they were there. I'm looking for some more continuity. I'm looking for some more offensive leadership adjustment to what the head coach wants. Everybody knew what AP wanted. Everybody did. Everybody. However, that was not always in line with the vision of the offensive leadership as far as making it happen. I'm no way implying Luke Getsy was sitting up there being obstinate or insubordinate. That's not the case. because that was not the case. Good man. It was just an inability to get the coach what he wanted and needed. And you got Joe Philbin, Norv Turner, and Scotty Turner. If you're not going to get it out of this group, you ain't going to get it. Um, I, but so that's a great question. And thank you. Yes, I will be in Miami. Next one. I thought this was good. Hondo, I love it when you give opinion because you clarify opinion. But if you had to guess today, not based on who you want, but the what you think, with the Raiders holding the third pick, who will they pick? That comes to us from Greg, but it's Grag, Greg or Greg. I would say Greg because my brother's Greg and he spells it with an E. Greg V, and he is in Poinsettia, but he doesn't put a state. Greg, if I had to pick today and not based on who would I pick, but just what I think if the Raiders keep the third pick, I think it will be Shedeur Sanders. It's who I believe the Raiders will pick. Again, that's not me saying I don't want him. I do want him. That's you're asking me what I feel. If all goes according to whole, I would say that. Okay, this is another one, another Shedeur one, but it's not one I've answered before. This comes to us from Mayton, Mattain, Mayton M, and lives in New York City. Hondo, I'm a huge Raider fan, love the Raiders so much. When I moved to America, that's what all of the musicians I listened to was they wore Raider clothing. So I'm a Raider fan. Never been to a game, but I follow it religiously and I love your podcast. Thank you, Mayton. Mayton says, excuse me. Again, Mayton says, if the Raiders were to pick in the NFL draft today, their pick would be the third. Do you feel like the Raiders would have to move up to get Shedeur? No. I don't think they would. Now, there's a lot of time between now and the draft, and things can change. Things can absolutely change, Mayton, but not right now. I don't think that's the case. Okay, the next one comes to us from Janet. Janet R. Janet lives in Pensacola, Florida. Janet says, Hondo, I love the Raiders, been a fan since 1981. I was wondering, recently one of your writers wrote an article about Mark Davis and his growth as an owner. I saw on social media a lot of people taking shots at Mark. What do you think has to happen for people to look and allow a guy to grow just like they allow players? You often talk about how fans want to throw players away before they can develop. You've used Colton Miller, you've used Jacorian Bennett for examples. What do people need to do to start realizing the difference in Mark Davis? That's him, Janet. Well, first of all, I think Mark Davis would tell you he's just got to win. And you're right, man. I got the worst email I've ever gotten from writing that article. You're going to hear it in a minute on Mark Davis. Remember, my job as a journalist is I'm not a cheerleader for the fan. I mean, excuse me, for the team. But I also am not a hater. Anytime you see a journalist venturing into a consistent pattern of cheerleading or a consistent pattern of hatred or negativity, I guess is probably a better term, then you probably need to just understand. Okay, I'll give you an example, and I'm not getting political. There are far left-wing television networks, there are far right-wing television networks. Okay, you need to. I have watched both on a regular basis. I don't watch a lot of TV, but when I do, oftentimes flip one on, see what both sides are saying. Why? Because I'm intelligent, or at least I think I am. I'm sure a lot of you would disagree. I think I can form my own opinions, but I want to know what other people are thinking. Ignorant people limit their mentality to only what they hear. And they don't listen to people that could have salient arguments who disagree with them. But that's why I don't listen to the extremes of any group. Okay. It should be the same way in your sports media or in any media. Now, you do whatever you want, but if you're just listening to people that are pro Raiders all the time, you're probably not going to get some honest evaluation. But if you're listening to people who make a living out of being negative about it, that's not fair either. I think that's just why we try to go right down the line. We're not fans, but we don't root against them. I guarantee you, if you got in a room, I'll use a guy that most people can't stand, Josh McDaniels. I was talking to a player about this um, last week, I think it was, just about how they appreciated Josh McDaniels, the person away from football. They didn't understand him as a coach, but they appreciated him. Okay, well, when you tell people that, oh, I hate you, okay, well, you can hate him because he was not a good coach, but it's not fair to just come at a hate, hate, hate approach. Same way with your sports media. It's why we try to stay right down the line. We will tell you when we think things are good, and we'll tell you when we think things are bad. But I think if you're Mark Davis, owners are judged rightly or wrongly, it's reality on winning. Period. You win, you're a great owner. I'll give you an example. One of the, in my opinion, worst run franchises is the Bengals. I mean, anytime you are around that team, you consistently hear bad things. Okay. Um, Now that's what they're known for. They're known as being cheap, a lot of things. And I'm sure they would argue that point, but that is the general feeling about that organization. So how do you fix it? Win. I think Mark Davis earned a lot of criticism early that he earned, but I don't think it all was his fault. He wasn't shown how to be an owner. He wasn't developed as an owner. I mean, there are skills that I have as a grown man, as a businessman, that my father developed in me that I don't think Mark was able to get from his dad. Not ripping Al, not ripping Mark, just didn't happen. So he had to grow into the role. If you want to be critical of Mark but not recognize the incredible things he has done to set this franchise up, they're one of the wealthiest franchises in the NFL. They're making money hand over fist. There's nothing they can't do anymore. Mark Davis deserves credit for that. Mark Davis has had a trigger finger. I think he deserves some credit for that, and I think he deserves some blame for that. Probably means he's made some hiring mistakes when you keep after firing people quickly. But I'm just saying to you, I think the only way you fix it is winning, Janet. It's just winning. It's all it is. Now, next one coming up. This is from Michael. Michael T. Michael says, Hondo, could you tell me? I know you go to the combine with your staff every year. As a fan, do you think it's a great thing to go to? I'm very interested in it. Michael T. Michael, I'm going to be blunt with you. I have no idea. I am there working, so I don't even know or have any clue what the fan experience is like. I've never been there as a fan. I've never participated in it as a fan. I don't even know what the fan can do. So I appreciate you asking me, but I have no idea whatsoever to tell you. Hondo, I'm curious if you had to pick an MVP of this team right now on the offensive side of the ball, who would you pick? I'd also like you to say defense, and I'd like you to say special teams. Oh, that's from Peter Underwood, and I don't have a location from Peter Underwood. Clearly, I think if you're going with offense, it's Brock Bowers. Period. I don't think you can go any farther than that. Uh, that's a fact. If you're looking at defensive side of the football, I mean, I think it's got to be Max Crosby. I think you could make an argument for Jacorian Bennett, but I think it's Max Crosby. And special teams, I am not being a politician. AJ Cole and Daniel Carlson are so good. I mean, they are game changers, best in the league. If I was Tom Telesco and I could trade my punter or my kicker for anyone in the league, I'm not trading either one of them. Jacob Bobemeyer, the long snapper, he's been phenomenal. You know how to know when you have a good long snapper? When people don't even talk about him and don't know his name. So there you go. This next one I thought was intriguing. I'm going to end with this. Hondo. I love the Raiders. I appreciate every single thing about the Raiders. I am 15 years old and they've never won. My dad is a big Raider fan. My grandfather is a big Raider fan. I'm just wondering if it's easier to go with another team. I'm tired of losing. At 15, it just doesn't seem to be what it's about for me. What do you think? I know you'll give me a truthful answer. Hmm. That's from Brad G. Brad, I'm going to tell you something. Now, I need to be very blunt with you, Brad. I am not a Raider fan. Okay. But you said a couple things in there that I think you need to hear someone say who isn't a Raider fan. Your grandfather was. Your father is. There is something to be said about loyalty. There's something to be said about it. That is something that will forever tie you to your grandfather and your father. One day, Brad, and I know you're 15, so you don't think like this, but one day you're going to have a grandson or a granddaughter sitting on your lap, and your dad's not going to be alive. And you're going to be able to talk to them about rooting for the Raiders when they weren't good because your grandfather did it, because your dad did it, because their grandpa and great grandpa did it. And it's something that will tie your family through. I'm going to be very blunt with you. I have a lot of respect for Raider Nation. I have a lot of it because I have met so many Raider fans. I meet them every game in Lot J. I travel during the off season and go to different parts of the country to do meetups with Raider fans. I'm going to Europe in May, to Scotland. And if there is one thing about Raider fan I have realized, I don't even like the term fan, and I'm going to explain why. It's a family. It is a family. I'm going to share something with you that I wasn't going to do, but I'm going to because I don't want anyone to abuse it. But I was in Lot J at a game last year, and there was a lady that had lost her ticket, and a man gave her his because she was distraught. She'd saved money to go to the game, lost her ticket. I don't know if it fell out of her pocket. I don't know what happened. And there was a season ticket holder there that had been, he told me, to multiple games going back to Oakland. He'd gone to LA, Oakland, all of it. He goes, yeah, it kind of stinks I'm not going to a game. But, she's fam. And this was her one game. I was flabbergasted. I've never seen that before. I've never experienced anything like that. Here is a guy that's been a season ticket holder through 3 locations, a diehard, because there's a lady in his fam who lost her ticket. He gives her his. Brad, I'm going to say something to you. If you're only a fan of the Raiders when they win, then use the term fan, I guess. But there is something to be said about loyalty. There is something to be said about your family has given you a heritage, and part of that heritage is being a Raider. Now, there's nothing wrong with thinking outside the box. There's nothing wrong with thinking I want to come up with my own team. That doesn't mean you're a bad kid. But I'm going to tell you something. You're building memories every Sunday watching those games with your dad, and if your grandpa's alive, with your grandpa. And you know what? The Raiders will eventually be back. They will come back. And when they do, you're going to be able to celebrate that being back unlike anything because you stayed faithful. I'm going to say this to you, Brad, and I'm an old man. I love my wife. I love her. I am so grateful every day. One of the first words out of my mouth is I say, thank you, God, for giving me a Shannon. And do you know what? She's older now than when I met her. She's a grandma now than when I met her. But do you want to know why I love her more today than I've ever loved her? Because we've been through stuff. Because she's been through hard times and I've held her hand. Because I've been through hard times, she's held my hand. Because we've been through some things. And one thing that we have proven is we're loyal. So, and guess what? It makes marriage awesome when you know that's my best friend. I'm committed. Now I understand marriage is not, I mean, football's not as important as your marriage. But here's what I want to get to. Go through this with your grandpa and your dad. Be true to your fam. Don't betray your colors. If you were a guy who'd never been a fan before, like the gentleman who said he came to America and started rooting for the Raiders because his favorite musicians wore Raider clothes, that'd be different. But you were born into something. You were given something. And I'm going to tell you another thing. You're not going to understand this till you're older. Till you're older. But one day, when your grandchildren are Raider fans, because you were, because great grandpa was, and great great grandpa was, you're going to realize this is a connection. This is a thread throughout our family. And it's going to be worth it. So you do whatever you want. There's no wrong decision. But you asked an old man what he thought, and he shared it. I'm going to tell you something, young man. I've been to every stadium in the NFL, I think. Yeah, I don't remember any new ones I have. Okay, I've been to everyone. Everyone. I've met so many great fans, so many great Raider fans, so many great fans of every other team. But Matt Millen, one of the greatest Raider players of all time, who happens to be a very dear friend of mine, said something to me once. He said, there are 31 teams in the NFL where the fans think they're part of the team, but there's only one where the team thinks the fans are part of the team. And I'm going to tell you something. Matt wasn't lying. You can go look all over. You can go flirt with 31 different teams. And it's okay to do. But there is no other fan base like Raider Nation. There's none. And the only thing I think you'll feel is, oh man, I settled. There were a lot of people that jumped on the Patriots bandwagon over the last 20 years. And you know what? It was a great bandwagon. They won a lot. Who are depressed today. There are a lot of miserable people who like a team called the Cowboys, who just really like a team called the Cowboys. I've got to show you something when I'm doing this, so I'm not ignoring you. And you know what? That team doesn't win anymore either. And a lot of people are, oh, we're going to jump ship. We're going to jump ship. And around here, we don't troll people. Around here, we don't mock people and make fun of them. But all those people who at one time years ago jumped on the Cowboys bandwagon, I don't know if I can get this to show. It's Stephen A. Smith. Now they're mad. Stay faithful. Raider Nation. There ain't nothing like it. I promise you. Get your silver and black clothes. Hug grandpa. Give your dad a high five. And know that one day when they're gone, your grandkids are going to be cheering for the same team because I bet you're going to be a great dad, just like your grandpa and just like your dad. God bless you, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful day.